Start white's clock.
And they are off as this tie break's underway. We've just had the marks of Queensberry's rules explained to us. And quickly d4, no knight c3, Queen's Gambit declined. Are we going to see bishop e7, bishop f4? Or are we going to see bishop b4 or d5 takes c4, possibly?
Small hesitation on Daniel Liren's part already. He could not have been fully surprised to see this come on the board.
Not at all.
But he is just taking his time to decide exactly which variation he wants to play, as he knows Magnus is well prepared pretty much for everything. And a bit of time seems a little extra time, and now c6.
I was about to say, at the end of my professional career, c7, c6 was the move that everybody liked to play, the Botvinnik pawn sacrifice that results from bishop g5, takes on c4 and e4.
Looks like a slight surprise to Magnus to see it. And now g3.
g3.
Whoa.
Okay, that is quite the surprise, I must say.
Why is that such a surprise to you, Yaz? Because is it the c4 pawn that pops out?
Precisely.
Oh,
Precisely.
Yeah. How'd I guess?
Yeah. It's not that easy now after d5. Well, he's going for it with knight e5. I was about to say, it's not super easy to win back that pawn on c4.
Because you don't want to play e3 or e4 because you're planning on putting your bishop on g2 now.
Precisely.
But okay, knight e5, and are you just going to defend it with b5?
Indeed, that's the main variation is b5, bishop g2, and knight d5 is one of, really, really complex line that black could undertake. Now, if black wants, he can also just allow white to recover the pawn with a move like knight d7, forcing knight takes c4. White is spending a lot of time, of course, and he played knight b7. He did play knight b8, d7.
All right, so I know you're shedding a tear, Yaz, as you wanted to keep that pawn.
I sure did.
But okay, after knight takes c4, it seems like you're so surprised by white's treatment. Is there anything like lesser than this advantage than normal? I mean, white still has a good opening position, no?
Oh, yes.
I mean, look at that bishop on c8, that
right.
woeful.
And let's just say, for example, b5.
Played.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where are you going to move your knight? You go back to e5. That could be a trade of knights, a trade of queens.
Yes.
This is a solid treatment, right?
Knight d2,
knight d2.
For example, you could have a situation like this where basically black aspires to play the move c6, c5. If he does get in c6, c5, and probably I made a mistake, I apologize. I'll just put queen b6 on the board. If black ever manages to get c5, you can imagine how easily he might be able to make an inequality.
Knight back to e5, mass trades happening very quickly. We see the knight takes, pawn takes, and now king takes on d1, keeping his knight on that c3 square. I think that's a
knight g4.
Big surprise. Knight g4 does look
to all the world like a fork. Knight g4.
I mean, how do you stop the capture?
Well, we can play bishop g2, and then if knight f2, king e1, knight takes h1, hello, bishop takes c6. And
what's
I am
the pawn
now
count at the
bishop d7, but no, I'm going to play bishop takes a8, and your knight's trapped, right?
Exactly. Bishop
so I'm going to
takes
be up a piece. Oh, you're saying for how many pawns?
No.
A grand total of 0.
Exactly.
Because I took c6 and you took f2. So bishop g2, you have to take a timeout. But now don't I have knight takes b5 possibilities?
I'm going to castle with check.
I see. So I better slow down. Hold my horses.
Yeah, and this guy is hanging too, don't forget.
So no bueno. So instead, let's try after bishop b7. My thought is that if I protect my e-pawn now, maybe I have knight, f-pawn. If I play king e1 now and you play knight e5, now I have knight takes b5.
Right.
And this is not the end of the world for white, is it?
No.
I mean, it's a little weird looking, but
white is spending a lot of time moving his king around the board, and then it could be like a move like bishop b4 check. Actually, bishop b4 check would actually provoke you to play knight c3. You couldn't play bishop d2 because, again, I've got that castles with check.
And what about king f1? You just don't like it?
No, on the contrary, I love it for black. Castles gives me a mate.
He did not go for knight g4. He avoided the most principal line, suspecting a rat from Magnus, and put the knight instead on d5. More solid to be sure, but he does have some slight weaknesses he will have to defend. That said, Liren has been a maestro at defending in this event so far. So he just didn't take any chances with knight to g4, and Magnus, now looking at this move, I'm pretty sure Magnus was eyeballing knight g4 and had some kind of reply for that. Sharp enough, Magnus has been showing that he's willing to sack pawns for the initiative, so I don't think he was that worried about possibly losing his pawn on e5.
Quick question for you, Maurice. How often has king takes d1 shown up in the database? This
is too fast. It's going too fast for me to even look in that direction. But
I was
maybe VAR can let us know. But this ending with knight g4 lines were so fascinating. I'm a little sad they didn't take place.
Exactly.
Knight d5 instead, much more solid move. And what should we do now is Wyatt? Just bishop d2 ready to play.
Bishop d2 is excellent move. The idea is that any trades we can take. Another move I might just you take a look at your bishop on c8 for just a moment. You get the idea that it is really doesn't have a great life. Imagine I play something really silly, takes, and I just want to put a silly situation on the board, f3. This bishop, okay, if you had kept it on c8, it would be stuck behind an e6 pawn, right? If you put it on bishop b7 and then you play a move like c6, c5, you want to give your bishop life, you'll be hitting a brick wall on e4 and f3. So white was going to go king c2, a4, and it's going to make it very difficult for black's bishop to ever come to life. Now,
neither of those moves were Magnus's choice. In fact, he played knight to e4, but really fascinating structural lesson you gave us there, Yaz. Yeah. Biting on granite, they call it.
Exactly.
Knight e4 played instead, and then bishop b7, quick reply from Liren, and now bishop g2 on the board.
I'm going to tell you, the engines really don't like Magnus's position at all. That king being a little bit unsafe, exposed. If castle's queenside right now, then there's a discovered threat in the position, and the king on c2 will be tickled at some point. Also, there's a big idea of playing c5 eventually for black. So castles, king c2, c5, taking over space, being able to go to b4 with check. There's that long diagonal you have to worry about constantly. This one could end up poorly if Liren is aggressive with castles.
Well, let's imagine we start, oops.
So that's really interesting, because when I look at this position, to me it's like bad king versus bad bishop. And normally, you know, hey, in endgame, maybe the bad bishop's going to be more important because it's more permanent. But this is not endgame yet.
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, that king in the center of the board gives black some very nice attacking looking options. So after castles, let's assume bishop d2. You're right, Maurice. King c2, knight b4 check looks like a very annoying move. But bishop d2, okay, on a good day, if I get the moves rook c5, pardon me, rook c1 and knight c5 together, that combination would be nice for white.
Okay, c5 right away.
c5. Can I be so greedy as to capture on c5? Knight takes c5, bishop takes c5, rook c1.
Well, don't forget, there's knight c5, there's a knight e3 problem.
There sure is, and this is not the bishops of opposite color that I was dreaming about when I picked off the pawn on c5.
But even before taking on c5, I mean, where that knight was hanging. And he's played c5 immediately. He's understanding what this position is about. And his bishop is no longer a bad piece. He always has tactics on the long diagonal. Bishop d2, the position you mentioned. D2. And now he could castle queenside, but he does have to watch out for this tactic you talked about.
Well, rook c1, c4, yeah. Castle's queenside, pardon me, is a move I'd really like to play. Maybe black can simply dodge those knight takes c5 ideas by playing c5, c4?
No, but c5 is so castles is so dynamic. Yeah, sir.
True.
I mean, if you castle queenside, by the way, your knight c5. Let's just go down this line. Knight c5 can be met by knight e3
Not to take on c5. Exactly.
And you got a pawn, but look at your tripled pawns.
I'm not happy at all. No, no, no.
I mean,
no.
those variations are going to work out badly.
Well, okay, but then how about rook c1? Now, in case of c4, is now a good time to take the time to play king to c2 and maybe try to park my king on b1. Actually,
also stronger for black is knight b6.
Sorry, what
rook c1, knight b6.
Rook c1, knight b6.
Pinning your knight and threatening knight c4.
Pinning the knight to the bishop on g2 and threatening knight c4.
I mean, black is just sort of taking over the initiative right now, and white is busy trying to keep the game going, but not. Black has nothing to fear here.
No, knight takes. I was looking at some knight takes c5 cheapos. Bishop takes g2, knight takes e6, discover check. There's some strange lines with
So
that
knight
rook on
c5, bishop g2, knight e6, king b8.
You also have knight c4.
And he played passively instead. By the way, that line is, he can sack his rook after knight c5 just to get your...
Okay, sorry.
So knight b6, knight b6, knight c5, rook d2, getting the rook out of the way. So you have no discards. And then take. And now you have no meaningful discovery in this position.
Especially as it's going to be met with knight c4.
For a check as well.
Check, check.
No. So two pieces for the rook here.
Exactly.
So he had that
And
aggressive line with
instead-
castles, but he didn't. He played bishop e7. Bit of a blink on Ding Liren's part.
Bishop e7. Well, the strange part is that the move bishop e7, to my mind, it's preparing to castle short. I like the idea that black's king could take a part in the battle on the queen side. Castling short and tucking the king away is all nice and good, but this could easily become an endgame very shortly, and the king on g8 isn't any great.
And it's just so much slower.
Much slower. I think he blinked when he had the chance right now against Magnus. He's probably thinking he just needs a draw with black, play solid, don't go for the sharpest lines, get the white pieces, and go win it that way. But you get a chance against Magnus.
Hey,
I can tell you, if Magnus had the black pieces, it's like, I don't believe you, I'm coming after you, I'm playing the sharp line, I'm coming to kill you.
Exactly.
You've got to take down the champ. You can't just back away and play solid chess and hope you make it, with the numbers, because that's not how Magnus is going to lose.
Well, maybe it was just this idea of castling short to avoid all these knight c5 ideas, Yaz. But
That's the point, avoiding risk.
Can I just play ultra aggressive, a move I really would like to play when I've connected my rooks and brought them to the center?
Well, I better take it.
You better take it, right? Knight d6 check, takes. So I've undoubled my pawns, and I'm ready. Please play knight e3 check, so that if you take, and then I got this pawn over here, or conversely, please play knight e3 check, and at the end of the day, I'll pick off this pawn on c5.
So king d7?
King d7. So then I was thinking about this move. Well, f4, no, doesn't work.
So e4, knight f6. Now, you can't play e5 because of bishop g2. And now you're knight g4 and...
Or maybe e5. So this is the problem, right? It's taking you time to collect the pawn on d6, but hey, if you do collect the pawn, it's going to be good for you. So knight d6 premature. I need to combine that with rook c1.
Magnus's knight e5, by the way, we're being told, was a novelty. That way back, by playing this move, knight e5, you could feel that it didn't really work out for him. Not this move.
Novelty,
not
knight
this.
e5?
No, on move 8. On move 8, when he played knight e5 the first time, right here, g3, knight e5 in this position, which is somewhat surprising given...
How could that be a novelty?
No, you said move 8, right?
That is move 8.
No, you mean the other one. You mean after b5, that's move 8, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, my apologies.
That
You're
makes-
right. You're
that
right.
makes
The
more
second time. The
sense,
second time.
because
I was about to
My
say, how
apologies.
could knight b5 first time view?
Looks pretty obvious. Yeah.
That's the most obvious move of the
Yes, that's right. This movie. Sorry.
But okay, this is puzzling to me because is it a novelty he made over the board, or is it something he prepared? Because if he prepared
I'm
it,
sure
then
he prepared it because knight
Okay.
g4 looks like, you're blundering a pawn.
so maybe he mostly looked at knight g4 and not knight d5. Because knight g4 variations, even though you seem to think they were suspicious, the lines that we actually looked at turned out okay for white.
Right.
Because there was those tactics.
Yeah. I'm
So
still
maybe
saying-
that's why. Maybe his team spent a lot of time on knight g4 and then less on knight d5, and that's the explanation for why he didn't get such a good position, even though he presumably prepared this.
By the way, just to double check, what is our current times
Magnus
on
has
the
a
clock?
slight edge on
But
the clock.
pretty
but
balanced,
even.
guys.
Pretty
Yeah.
balanced. Okay.
I mean, so it looks like we're about to be exactly balanced.
Okay.
As they both have 18 minutes and 53 seconds right now.
Right now.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Jump on it. Okay, big moment here actually, because another approach that Magnus could take is, let's suppose Magnus were to play the move a4
Okay.
and just say, okay, I'm comfortable with this stasis that has occurred in the center here. Keep your knight on d5. I'm going to keep my knight on e4. On a good day, way down the line, I'm going to play f4. But in the
So
meantime,
b4.
oh, but that's
Is
a.
that a bad
big-
positional move?
Well,
How are you gonna get a
it's
knight there?
awkward. It's awkward because unless you gain control over the c4 square. Okay, so let's just go down this path for a second.
Rook
Right.
c8, the defending.
Rook c8,
And now
let's
are
go
you trying to
bishop
do your knight
g5.
d6 or no?
I
Oh,
wanna
okay.
go
Bishop
bishop
g5. So now if bishop takes g5, maybe knight d6.
Well, no, the rook on c1 is hanging, which is a
Yeah, that is
bit
a
of pity.
problem, yeah.
Ah, no. Then that's a pity. I apologize. I can't get in the
I think
tempo
Magnus
I need.
himself is struggling with how to get this game going, as you see him burn a lot of clock in this rapid
He
game.
certainly is. Certainly.
He knows this is a very important moment in the game as Black is prepared to castle either side. Most likely, we see Black looking to go king side, but Black could also keep the king in the middle of the board as well, although this bishop e7 move intimates that he wants to go king side and not give Magnus any chances. But this is going to be a very easy game for Black to play. That's probably the biggest difficulty here. Black's play is so easy. Castles, bring the rooks to the middle, start pushing pawns. White needs to figure something out specifically, and don't forget that king on d1, it obviously cannot castle anymore.
ideal.
So Magnus has to do some kind of fixing of his position. That's going to take a few tempi to get it fixed. King c2, bring the rooks together, put the king on b1. That's 4 moves. Black takes 1 move to castle, and then his 2 rooks get into the game really fast, and then he gets to play with no weaknesses to speak of. Black's got to be okay here, so Magnus wants to make sure that he's okay. And I think that's why he has to be careful about not trying any kind of a4 ideas, because he doesn't have anything real to chew on in Black's position. And he spent 8 minutes right now looking at it. In a rapid game,
for a
that's
rapid
pretty remarkable, 8 minutes.
Well,
And look at Magnus. He is
indeed.
not comfortable.
Talking 25% of your allotted time.
And
Once
counting.
again, it's a 10-second delay, is it?
10-second delay, that's right. So
25
that's
minutes.
important.
A
because
third of your time.
The players
he
can't
spent.
get.
Third of
A
the
third
time.
of his time on 1 move.
They can't get, and he hasn't moved yet, so it
And
could
he
end up
hasn't
being
moved yet.
half.
And by the way, it's not like Ding Liren has played something spectacularly off balance that you didn't look at. I mean, c5, bishop e7, these are pretty natural moves. So I'm really surprised by this very long
Very long.
But maybe it'll prove to be smart, guys, because he senses this is a critical moment
It
with
is.
knight d6 ideas, rook c1, and after that he'll probably play a lot of moves quickly.
I don't know, Jen. This is starting to remind me of the Rapidan Blitz. He didn't do well in the Rapidan Blitz. He was not comfortable after a long thing. Now he has played rook to c1. He showed that form, the classical form, in the last 2 games of this event, the Sinquefeld Cup. But in the Rapidan Blitz, this is what he was doing. Guessing himself, second guessing himself, third guessing himself. What should I be doing here? He was not in flow. We'll see if that is what is about to happen, or will this move that took him so long be just a prelude, as you said, to some quick moves? We don't really know yet.
All right. Well, obviously the move rook c1 does attack the pawn on c5. There's two things that black can do. He can either defend the pawn with the move rook c8, which looks very logical, or he could advance the pawn with the move c5, c4, gaining space, and essentially asking white, are you prepared to play the move b2, b3 or not?
Quick bet. Which one is he going to play? It's only two moves.
Rook c8.
My guess as well. I think he's going to play solid.
Woo!
And we're both wrong.
Yay!
I'm going to go with c4. What? Just took me a moment to analyze the ramifications of b3.
Well, he was playing solidly to this point, so I was trying to guess from the nature of his play. This one a little bit more loose, as b3 had to be calculated.
Exactly.
But he seems comfortable with this particular move, and now the king quickly trying to hop to that b1 square.
He did play king c2?
King c2, yes, played.
Yes, no b2, b3, because there was a chance that after b2, b3, he could have just that black, Ding Liren could have played a5.
Yeah, and then that pawn is a runner.
Again, the king isn't that comfortable. If the king was on g1, it would be much better off. But king c2, preparing to, as Maurice was saying, play king b1.
There's an f5 siding. There's an f5 siding in the position that will be very sharp right now. Magnus will have to figure out what to do, as there are some discoveries that lead to his bishop being captured on g2, and then the king may not get back home
in time.
But with that, but
with
at
the
least
bishop
with
e4
that king on e8, knight takes f6 is a check, right? So you have to take with the pawn.
Oh, you want to take with the pawn.
Yes.
The point
so
is
pawn takes.
to take with the pawn and reinvigorate the threat of f5.
Well, sure, but if you could take the knight and it wasn't check, it might be actually winning material, or so it could be devastating.
Right, but what do you do? What do you do
now?
now?
But f6 looks like f5.
So if you go f5, I could maybe play
Knight b4 checks here.
knight
That's
b4
irritating,
check.
right?
Yeah, if you get the d3 square for your knight,
Yeah, so
then
bishop
you're
f3,
happy.
and I'm definitely.
Then you're just.
Well, b5
crushing.
is hanging in the end, right? But it's just not enough.
Ooh,
Queenside castle.
castle now, finally.
Uh-oh, my board kind of froze there.
Nope, you got the position here.
Okay.
He castled. That's he finally opted for this sharp move.
I am
now-
happy to see that move, by the way.
For who?
For Ding Liren. I think that the king on the g8 square would actually misplace the king, and I think that king on the queen side or in the center really makes the most sense. So
But after f5, it looked really promising. Now king b1, and f5 might not be quite as strong anymore.
well, why do I have to play for
You don't have to
f5?
play it right away.
Why don't I just bring my rooks to the open d file and eyeball the bishop on d2?
So all the moves, by the way, we were talking about, the king fixing itself, the rooks coming to the open files.
Rook d1 played instead of
have
king
been
b1.
played. Have been played. This is what we were talking about.
Castles,
You needed, he
Rook
needed to
D1.
fix his position in
Rook on
Magnus,
H to D1.
and he needed to play all these moves.
Right.
Now-
So the king up, the rook up. Ding Liren will play rook d7 and double as well.
Yeah.
So bishop g5 is never too good because you do have f6.
Well, a moment ago you were going to play f6.
Ooh, f5 now on the board.
Now f5
Whoa.
played.
You know, he's changed.
It's very hard guessing where he's going because he mixes
Solidity.
the ideas,
Yeah,
right?
solidity with dynamism.
So-
Exactly.
But right now, his last few moves have been dynamic. He started off very solid, said, let me not do anything
Bishop E7.
crazy. But in the last few moves, c4, castle's queenside, and f5 shows his state of mind.
And knight g5, indeed, and knight c3 loses immediately to knight b4 check. Knight g5 also loses to bishop takes g5, bishop takes g5, knight b4 check. So both of those moves are out, right? I mean,
Yeah, it leaves only e5 takes f6.
yeah, I mean,
There's
either
no-
that or knight d6 check.
There's
But
no alternative.
Magnus is nervous now.
is knight d6 check is the only other candidate move, but that would just sacrifice a pawn, and I don't see that leading to anything. But
That's a Yasser Sirwan pawn right there.
yeah, but e takes f6, so therefore e takes f6 is forced.
No, knight g5 is forced. E takes f6.
Wait, what happens to knight g5, bishop takes g5?
and then bishop takes d5.
Ah, okay, right. Bishop takes d5. Nice little in-between move.
Wild line breaks out, but you may be losing a pawn.
But wait, you're losing e5, huh?
Yep.
But there's bishops of opposite. Okay.
Right. You hope that you survive this position.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So smart idea there, knight g5, and indeed, Magnus is thinking it over as he sees this idea.
He has been outplayed, though. Magnus has been outplayed this game. Those last few moves were not accurate, and Magnus trying to decide now as he realizes he has to get in the defensive mindset.
But let's say he's not.
Whoa! Forget defensive
He did
mindset.
choose the other pawn
I'm going to
sacrifice.
sacrifice a pawn and keep it going.
Yeah. Well.
Knight d6 check, bishop takes d6, e5 takes d6, all on the board. We're anticipating take the pawn.
So similar to the other pawn sacrifice, he's anticipating sometimes there's going to be this bishops of opposite color endgame.
You're right.
Where he can hold on, and indeed he goes for that right away. So for some reason he liked this move order better than the knight g5 idea. Bishop takes d5 right now. And maybe because he wants to put the bishop on c3 as. I think that might be why, because with it on g5, it would be harder to reroute it to that nice diagonal.
Well, I'm thinking just the opposite. I'm thinking that he sacrificed a pawn purposely to try to get a draw, but if he could play king c3, king b4,
Yeah.
then, okay,
That's why, okay.
If, for example, bishop f4, and if I could get my king over here, I've got this really, really, gorgeous dark square blockade. Now, having said that, Jen, bishop c3 looks like a very decent getting, as you say, the bishop on the long diagonal. Maurice?
There's an amazing decision, though, that
See it. It looks so appealing, especially with this idea of g5 and f4. And it looks like Ding Liren is carefully considering his three options here as, and I think that this is just an incredibly important fork in the road of the game.
No question about it. I love the move e6 takes d5 from a structural point of view. Black has a queenside majority, 3-2 on the queen side. But if you could go e6 takes d5 followed by d5 d4,
oh boy,
that's just like a
bank.
huge,
and he's done it.
And here it is.
Wow,
huge
he has
majority.
done it.
A nice recapture with the pawn to bring his, essentially, as Maurice was saying, the rook on e8 comes to life, and
d4 was a
bishop
huge
c3.
threat.
Saw it all.
So
bishop c3, rook e3 on the board.
Rook e8, yeah.
Pardon me, rook e8, e2, e3, and now this move g5. And I love this opportunity from Black's point of view of being able to play for rook h6, harassing this h2 pawn, and one pawn more for Black in the initiative.
And all the initiative. This is a two-result game at the moment. As Magnus has not solidified the position at all, and he will have to watch out as g5 is on the board. Ding Liren playing boss chess right now.
He's playing wonderfully well. Really, really.
And Magnus is in trouble.
Impressive.
Magnus can't even find a target. That d pawn, well defended by the bishop for the moment. It doesn't look like white has any way to pierce the structure. The beautiful thing, too, is b3 and a4, those things won't affect Black's position. He'll just have passed pawns. You do things like that.
Yeah.
You can trade off if you want. a6 will keep everything solid, and he'll just get passed pawns for you to stare at. Plus, you're down a pawn, and you're going to have to worry, like, what do you do about rook h6 as a threat?
I think I have to start with the move rook d4.
Agreed.
In order to meet rook h6 with h4. I've got one trap in the position, and I seem to recall a game from my junior days. It was like in the Garfield High School. I once had a situation where my opponent unwittingly went inside and I trapped the rook like that. So I'm thinking that Magnus has to play the move rook d4 in order to meet. He did, okay. In order to meet rook h6 with h4 and at least offer a trade of rooks, and maybe on a good day if white could get rook g1. Again, he's playing for a blockade. He's trying to draw the game.
He's trying to draw. There's no question.
Exactly. And if he can get his bishop to d4 and his king to c3, we talked about that dark square blockade. He will be closer
Rook
to a
e4
draw.
played instead.
e4.
Rook e4. Okay.
And his main point is to play for that rook h6 idea as well, trading off a pair of rooks. That could backfire. That could backfire as you simplify the game and make it a little bit easier for white. But as long as he keeps a pair of rooks on the board, then he should still have some initiative.
Okay, rook e4. Let's see what we can do. My first instinct would be to take the rook. And I want to play,
Okay, take with the f-pawn because that way your f-pawn is also a weakness.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, then I want to go rook h1 and h4.
Okay, and I don't have rook f6 because that square is
guarded.
So I'm going to have to move my rook back in order to attack.
Exactly. And let's go h4. Now, if I can get you to play g4,
okay,
then the idea was that
you're blockading.
I'm getting. I mean, it's not like your light squared bishop.
But okay, what if I play rook f7, bishop f4, d4? Is that possible?
Okay.
You're not going to fall for it.
I'm just gonna go king c3.
Well, b4 should be played, right? You should play b4 and try to. You shouldn't move the rook because I see a bishop d6 coming. Let's put our rook back on d7.
It seems like there are some potential tactics in all these lines.
This one, play for b4 and a5 probably. a5.
Yeah. Here, the bishops of opposite color, I think is making a very.
Bishop c6.
By the way, rook e4, rook h1 on the board.
Rook e4, rook h1 on the board. Sorry, Jen, here?
So rook h1 right away. So rather than
rook
taking
h1
first,
okay.
Rook h1 immediately.
Okay, white's leaving the tension, keeping the tension. Makes a lot of sense because that means that there's no reason for you to think that the F file is half open.
Yeah, I like that idea better.
Much better.
Nice little tweak on the same defensive idea.
But I think from Magnus's point of view, if Magnus can get an h4, provoke the move g5, g4, and then, rook a1 and get a dark square blockade, he'll be closer to a draw.
What about that bishop on b7 appearing on either e4 or d3?
That would be magic.
Well, bishop c8, bishop e8, bishop h5.
Bishop e8, bishop c8, bishop what?
Bishop c6, e8, h5.
Oh, sorry.
And then bother him somehow.
So 1, 2, 3, and then.
That too. I didn't even look at that route. Yeah, h5 I was thinking. But g6 is another square. Yeah, maybe that's a way to improve this bishop and just to keep the play going. We saw this happen with white in the Sinquefeld Cup where he was able to do it.
With the white side.
With the white side against Anand.
Yeah, very important idea in French positions where you reroute the bad bishop by e8 to g6 and h5.
Oh man, yeah.
I don't play the French, but when my opponent gets to do that against me, it's always very groan-worthy.
Groan-worthy?
Yeah.
But guys, how is Ding Liren going to handle h4?
Rook h6?
Well, the problem as I see it with rook h6, Maurice, is I'm going to take on e4, and if you take, just for argument's sake, with the d pawn, bishop g7.
And if I take with the f pawn?
Same idea. Bishop g7. I'm attacking your rook. If you put your rook on g6, then I'll drop back to d4 with the double threat of capturing on g5 and capturing on a7. And if you put your rook on h5, well, you may not want to put your rook on h5. It looks a little bit awkward there after bishop f6. And again, your f5 pawn could be on e4.
And what if I take the other way? I just want to, I always want these, you're doing the same thing, bishop g7, and then rook
h5.
And now g4 you have, with the threat of rook f5, you have bishop g5 again. And then what if I play d4 with the idea of e3? I'm just trying.
But why do you have to do this? Why don't you just play for b4 and eventually you play h6? White has no counterplay. White is going to be trying to protect this position.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to make a winning breakthrough before he gets a fortress. Like d4 and e3, just get something going. But it seems like you were basically defending there.
So h6. Let's go down this line.
Oh, sorry. b4. Sorry.
Yeah, the whole
bishop
thing.
g5.
Yeah. This b4.
b4. Rook.
h6.
h6. Bishop f4.
Rook f5. Your F2 is hanging.
So what do you guys think? Is this going to be a draw or a win for Ding Liren?
I think a draw.
Yeah, I'm betting on draw too, but it still is Ding Liren trying to set up some
H6,
tricks
so
and traps.
They are going down our line. I didn't really see alternatives though for Magnus. I don't want to allow, after this move, Rook H6, which is, by the way, on the, no, it's not, hold on. Just a second. Rook E4, Rook H1, Rook H6, not Bishop C6, Rook H6. I don't want to allow Rook H3, so I have to play H4. I have no choice, and Magnus has played H4.
This is reminding us again of that puzzle we co-created where you tried to take credit for.
You mean the immortal Sarah 1 lockdown?
Yeah, right.
Sarah 1 lockdown.
People already saw the video, so you can't even pretend that position. And here comes the king.
H4, King D7 on the board.
He's trying to hurry up and involve this king in the act.
Okay, so I don't know if I need to hurry this or not, but suppose I do start with Rook takes E4 now. Are we capturing, how are we recapturing, first of all, with the D or the F pawn? Would choose one.
All those lines.
Excellent.
After
Bishop G.
after this capture.
7.
And then
It's
we
pretty
were trying.
compelling.
We were trying Rook H5 last time, right?
Okay, and this time instead of my Bishop F6, I see no reason to hurry. I'll play King C3 with the idea I want to get a blockade in on the dark squares with King D4.
Right, yeah, that is a good idea. I like that idea. Stopping any kind of funny business with D4. And if A5, you just have King D4. But maybe that's where we need to look.
A5, King D4?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm feeling good.
A3 by Magnus.
Oh, A3 by Magnus?
He's preparing the long scale blockade.
For sure. A3. Wow, I find that move intriguing. I really, you know, I would be a little bit anxious to put my king on E5 or D4. And
Maybe he was afraid of those lines with B4, A4, some breakthrough tricks sometimes. I wonder about when your king was on D4.
And now G4 on the board.
Okay,
the entire
that shut
side
it down. That
locked.
shuts down the game. That's a draw offer right there. Mm-hmm. That is a draw offer. I don't think that there's anything now because the dark square blockade is just too formidable. Rook takes E4 finally by Magnus. And I'm sure Magnus saw that move G4, he just probably went, okay, that's losing with white. I don't care if you are Mr. Perfect, 100%. Losing with white in a 2-game match to start the
Took
game.
the rook with the F pawn.
With the F pawn, okay.
Yeah, this position shut down. I wonder who will consider this a success, as Ding Liren no doubt came into this position came into the game thinking a draw is fine. I'll take white next game. Magnus got nothing with the white pieces, and Ding Liren, if his attitude is, well, I had a whisper of a chance, but it didn't work out, so what? But now I get white, and Magnus will be under pressure. Will Magnus say, yeah, I could have been in trouble there, and so I got out of it? Or will he think, man, I just tossed a white game completely away and got 0 for it?
I think that Ding is the one who's going to be the most pleased, because I'll remind everybody that in the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz, these players had 3 decisive games. 3 decisive games. White won every game.
Yeah, that's right.
So Ding Liren will be thinking, I'd like the white pieces for the Sinquefeld Cup.
What do you think about this last move by Magnus?
B4.
B4,
blockade.
Stopping any A5. He has introduced a second potential weakness, but he probably can defend them both. The pawn on A3 is now weak, and also the pawn on F2 is weak.
But he's going to go Rook D1, Rook D2. As Jennifer mentioned, you can't play Rook F6, so it's going to take you a while to play Rook F5. Say you start with Rook H5. Well, now I'm in time. Rook D1, Rook F5, Rook D2, and you're not breaking through on the king side.
Rook A6 was Ding Liren's choice.
And after rook a6, I've got king b2, just keeping the a pawn defended.
King
which he
b2,
did,
h5.
and then rook d1, and then we can just agree to draw.
And we expect to draw very shortly. Remember, unlike in the classical portion, you can offer draw. You don't have to repeat moves.
And I heard Chris Bird mention the same thing, that draw offers are permitted in blitz and rapid, unlike the classical, where no draw offers were allowed.
Yeah, and here, but I think they're kind of in the habit of just doing the repeat method.
Exactly. And
it looks like this is exactly what's happening as the first game of the rapid playoff is drawn. Now, some may say that that's a big success for Ding Liren, as he had Magnus in a great position for Ding Liren. Now he gets the white pieces, but keep in mind that Magnus's last victory in the classical event and his best win in the